Let me welcome you, first of all. It's a great pleasure to see all of you here. I welcome you on behalf of the board of the League of Women Voters of Berrien and Cass Counties. I'm a member of the board, and we're delighted to see you here today. The occasion for today is that the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. It's a grassroots organization. Although we do not support candidates and we do not support parties, we do take positions on events or on issues of public interest, on policies. The League of Women Voters of Michigan and also the national organization declares, after a period of study, a position on various issues. You can find those positions online at lwv.org or at lwvmi.org. The first one is for the national organization, the second one is for Michigan. The occasion for today is that one of the positions, one of the policy statements of the Michigan League is up for restudy as to whether that position should be altered. There have been recommendations by some that it's time to re-examine that issue. So that's what brings us together today. But some of you are not members of the League, and we want public input. We welcome the ideas of everybody in the community because that helps guide our thinking. So today's program will be in two parts. The first part is the public forum with our speakers and with everyone present and welcome. The second part will be the element where the members of our local league will examine whether there should be a change in that position. We'll take a short break before we have that second portion, and everyone is welcome to stay for that second portion as well. But it will be only league members who will be asked to vote as to whether that position, that policy statement, ought to be changed or not. So that's where we are today. That is what brings us together. We will have 4 speakers. Why only 3 people? Because one of them will be participating only by telephone. And that is Dave Pagel, who is in Lansing because he is a member of the legislature and the legislature is in session. The other speakers that we have today are sitting in front of you, and they are, beginning with Mr. Bailey. This is Sheriff Bailey. Then we have, and he is the Sheriff of Berrien County. Then we have Teresa Hendricks, who is the Executive Director of the Michigan Legal Aid. And then we have Fred Leitz, who is a farmer, and he is the owner of Leitz Farms. And I think that's a pretty good assortment of the perspectives that we need in order to make our decisions and to have a fuller understanding of this important issue of whether migrant workers and seasonal workers should have access to driver's licenses and to IDs regardless of their position and regardless of their immigration status. So,
I think it's a practical situation. We have to recognize that many of these folks do live here and reside in Michigan. We need them in our agricultural industry. We do not intentionally hire illegal aliens, but every worker that comes to my farm has to present a Social Security card and a picture ID, state ID. But the fact of the matter is, some of these folks aren't citizens, and we need them in the agriculture industry, and they need to be able to drive. They can get these driver's license in Illinois, and they can pay the state of Illinois for that right and buy insurance there. Why not allow them to buy a Michigan license, pay our insurance, and take our test for driving? If you can imagine life without a driver's license, when you need to get food or go to a doctor or whatever, all your basic needs, it's pretty hard to get by without a driver's license. So I don't think it does harm. I don't think it's an immigration issue at all. I think we have to look to the federal government to kind of get their act together in regards to immigration. I think we need a reasonable guest worker program to allow folks to come and work in agriculture and then go back and be tracked properly. But I think it's also reasonable to allow these folks who need it to get a driver's license in Michigan. I think it's better for the police when they pull over someone, and we all get pulled over eventually. That person is a lot less likely to flee or to be afraid of the police if they have a legal driving license. So, being that it was the law prior to 2008, being that our large farm organization, the Farm Bureau, has supported this in their policy book, it's something that I support also.
Can you tell us, Representative, what is the difference in the bills that are law now and what you're proposing in the two new bills that you've recommended?
Honestly, I don't think these bills are going to come before the House, just given the situation here with our conservative majority, and I'm a conservative myself, but I understand this issue, whereas so many of my colleagues do not. It's not one that immediately jumps to your attention thinking, yeah, I would support that. It really goes the other way. But prior to 2008, we did allow, we didn't check for citizenship when you went to get a driver's license, and that's where these bills would take us back to, where citizenship would not be required. This driver's license would not give you the right to vote or any citizenship rights other than just the ability to drive a car.
And what kind of a hardship is this for you in your business?
Well, I know growers of fruit and vegetables sometimes have quite a large number of folks living on their farm, and if any of them need a ride into town for groceries or whatever, it becomes challenging to provide that. And the growers have told me they prefer it if their workers could go and get a license and drive legally, just for practical matters, taking care of their daily needs. One grower today told me that, well, a bunch of his workers had licenses, but they expired somewhere around 2008 or shortly after, and now they have not renewed their licenses. So it's just a matter of being practical. And it should not get confused with the rest of the immigration debate, because it's really not about citizenship or any of the kinds. Thank you very much.
Okay, my name is Teresa Hendricks. I'm the director and an attorney with Migrant Legal Aid. Our long name is Michigan Migrant Legal Assistance Project, Inc. So you're welcome for shortening the name to Migrant Legal Aid. I've been an attorney representing migrant workers for over 25 years. And we help them with their working conditions, their living conditions, their wages, and then all the other things that can happen to them while they're in Michigan. And one of the things that I've seen is an increasingly alarming immigration-related fear that is driving families to other states. There are 10 other states that allow driver's licenses, and for a migrant worker who depends on transportation for income and jobs, the driver's license is also a protector of the family's integrity, because if someone is arrested for driving without a license, they can be deported and your family's now torn apart. So the word has spread that Michigan is anti-immigrant, anti-driver's license for immigrants, and there are many other states that will be happy to take the labor, and the workers know this. So we see an increasing number of workers just skipping Michigan, and then they'll go to one of the other states where the word has spread that you can get a driver's license. The workers that come here that need a driver's license that can't otherwise get them, a lot of them go to Chicago to get one, and then they'll work in Indiana, Illinois, and maybe they might head back to Michigan. We're not sure. So the problem that I've seen is that the immigrant-dense industries, so not just agriculture, but construction and then the hospitality trades, which are, hotel, restaurant, all of those industries are being drastically affected by lack of available labor. And so when this bill was first crafted, it was crafted very carefully, keeping in mind that the Secretary of State will, if this bill passes, have to promulgate some rules, and the bill actually says that that process shall involve a collaboration between law enforcement, like Sheriff Bailey, and immigrant advocates, like myself. And that way we make sure that we can preserve the safety related to giving driver's licenses to undocumented workers and the social justice issues that surround that also. So the Transportation Committee is where this bill was referred in June. And if anybody wants to express their opinions about this, the chair of the Transportation Committee is Tristan Cole. And I have his phone number and all of the other Transportation Committee members' phone numbers on these sheets of paper. You're welcome to take. I made 50 copies. Since I'm giving away door prizes, I also have brochures on our latest initiative regarding the Fair Food Project. I don't know if you've heard of this, but there's a charter in Michigan called the Good Food Charter, and it includes fair as part of the elements, and that means the ethical and humane treatment of our farm workers. So this is information about that, and then I also have the actual bill if anybody has questions about the language of the bill. But this would take us back to before 2008 when migrant workers could get driver's licenses, and typically they would be assisted by the grower that employs them, and the Secretary of State would say, all right, show me that you're residing in Michigan, show me a utility bill, or show me your rental agreement, or show me your pay stub from where you're working, and they would get a driver's license. And as a result, they could then make sure that they could drive legally, that they could get the insurance they needed, and that if there was any question about their identity, that they could show them who they were, their permanent address. So those were the things that were very beneficial prior to 2008. And like Representative Pagel said, we never had a real problem from that. So I think, and it's our opinion not at our agency, that if we go back to that type of procedure for allowing driver's licenses and then have these additional provisions that we put in this new bill, it would be protective of both sides, both the social justice side and the public safety side.
Sheriff Bailey, would you have a comment?
Is this on? Just that in 2008, our legislator looked at who could get a license in Michigan, and I know there were some concerns about who had licenses because as we pick our juries in the state of Michigan, it's picked from your driver's license. And there's concerns that illegal aliens are going to be sitting on juries, and if they get a license, that's how every juror in Berrien County and any county in Michigan, that's how you get picked. It's not off your voter registration card anymore because they wanted to make sure that they included everybody that would be able to be picked from a jury, because not everybody's registered to vote in the state of Michigan or in other states in our country. So I have some concerns that those people that are not citizens of the United States would be picked to come in serving on a jury. So I know, coming from a farm myself, being raised on a farm, working very closely with the farmers and meeting with them, Freddie sitting down here at the end runs a great program. We hardly ever get called out at his migrant camp or any other migrant camp in Berrien County. The farmers do a great job with their camps, communicating with their workers, and if there's an issue on those camps, they usually take care of them themselves unless a crime has committed, and then we do get called and come in and take care of it. But as the sheriff's office, we work with everybody. We work criminal complaints or even a civil complaint. We never ask anybody their status in our country. We just take the complaint, take the information, and we submit it to the Berrien County prosecutor. Now, if somebody gets arrested and comes to jail, and we run everybody through our lien system. If there is a warrant or a hold from ICE on that person after they have broken the law and committed a crime, we will contact ICE and let them know that they're in our jail and that when they serve their time that's been sentenced to them by the judge, ICE will come and get them that day that they're supposed to be released and do whatever ICE does for them violating the law to being here illegally. But at no time do we go out any call or go to any businesses and check anybody's status. That's not our job. Our job is to serve the citizens fairly, with integrity, and that's what we do at the sheriff's office. So that's my concern about opening up for driver's license. I know there's a problem with the farmers getting some people to be able to drive their trucks and vehicles. They don't need a license to drive a tractor, but they need a license to drive the farm trucks. So if you come from another country and you have their driver's license, you can drive here. So you can get a license if you're a citizen in this country, if you come with the identification that you need to get a license. So those are my concerns, and I think as a country we need to address them. I think our federal government needs to do something about the work visa coming in here to make sure that we can get our farmers the adequate workers that we need and address if they don't have a driver's license in the country they come from. How can we work with the other countries to make sure they're getting a license from their country before they come here, which gets rid of all the problems that we're having with people that don't have licenses. Because all of you probably have traveled outside of this country. You can drive on your license in any other country, and they can drive on their license when they come here to the United States. My niece teaches in Spain. She drives on her Michigan driver's license in Spain. She's been there for 4 years teaching English. She doesn't have to get a license from that country. So I think as Washington continues to address this issue with our farm workers, we have to do something about getting adequate people here to pick our apples, our tomatoes, our peaches. We know that, so we need them to come up with a program. I know Fred Leach sitting down at the end here will probably tell you he's been in Washington a bunch of times talking to a lot of legislators about the issues that the farmers are having in Michigan and across the country. So if we continue to work on this together, I think we can solve it. I just think that I have some issues with illegal aliens getting driver's license that are not from our country, but I'm not against foreigners. I'm not against people coming to our country. We travel all over. I do take an oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Michigan, and it is illegal to be an illegal alien. It is against the law. So how do we fix that?
Sheriff Bailey and Representative Pagel both hit on the biggest issue, which was immigration reform. If we could get that solved, there'd be a lot of things that would be better for the migrant population and the illegals that are here. And it's not just give them amnesty, it's give them the people that are working, let's give them work authorization. If they're on the dole and sitting on their butts or they've had criminal acts, let's kick them out, but let's at least know who's in our country. We know in agriculture, unless you're in an agricultural visa program, you probably have 70% of your workers that are undocumented workers. That's just a fact of life out in our industry. And it's something we go to bed with every night, and we worry about having workers the next day if you'd have Immigration and Customs Enforcement come in and do a document check. You'd have nobody left. You could just, I kid with my banker, and he thinks it's more serious, but he says, what's your plan if in the middle of July and you got a couple $1 million out in the field there and you've got no way to pick it? And I just grab my keys and throw them at him. You know, he doesn't think it's funny. I chuckle a little bit. But because of that, about 3 years ago, we started using the H-2A visa program, which is for agricultural workers. It costs us a lot to bring the workers in, but we know that they're legal and they're going to be there in the morning. Immigration, Immigration reform, I've been going back and forth to DC for 25 years. Since the mid-90s, agriculture has known we've had a problem, and we go in and talk to congressmen and senators, and we tell them the problem. And back in the 90s, they said, just fill out the I-9 form. They say, look at the documents, close your eyes. They didn't say that. They close their eyes, look at the documents, put them down on the I-9 form. The economy's strong, and we need those workers here. So we all built our businesses off that. After 9/11, that changed. Then it was, let's know who's in our country. We got to kick all these people out. No matter what side of the aisle you sit on, it's been a wedge issue both ways. Hopefully it will get solved. I think President Trump and the people we have in Congress are wanting to solve this issue and get the wedge issue off the table. You know, I remember in 2008 the Farm Bureau was against changing the driver's license. I think that was part of the Real ID Act, and it all finally gets phased in, I think, by 2020. If you'll see when you have to renew your licenses that you have to take a birth certificate in or a passport or something like that, and then you can get a special little mark on your driver's license, and that way it's Real ID to go into the Caribbean, go into Mexico, or go into Canada. And it was just, you really have done good proof that you're a citizen with that. But I know that we had a lot of migrant workers at that time. That was before we had the H-2A program, and we employ 250 people seasonally on our farm. And all of them had driver's licenses, whether it was from Mexico or whether it was from Michigan. And now I have had a lot of employees that can't drive my vehicles anymore. They were supervisors and stuff, and because they can't get a license, they can't drive my vehicles. So it hurts them because they have no more room for advancement in our organization, number one. And number two, I can't put anybody in a vehicle without a license. And I'd really like to see this change so those people can get a license. It'll do a couple things. First off, we'll know that they know how to drive. If they can get insurance, they won't be afraid of, and Sheriff Bailey will tell you, sometimes somebody has an accident or something and they just take off through the fields. They don't have a license and they don't want to get caught. We see that happening. So agriculture has a problem with we need people with driver's licenses to help us do our business, and it's better for everybody because we know that they have the skills to drive, and we know that they have insurance. And let's keep that in Michigan, and let's keep everybody safe that way. You know, voter IDs, I worry about that. I worry about what Sheriff Bailey talked about, jury duty. But if it's a different style license and everything's a database, you just have a check box on the computer database that you don't pull those people up. That seems like that would work for me. The H-2A program, what's it take and how long does it take to get in? For a contract that we have starting, today's the 22nd, 21st, in a month, we started back in January with the contract. It's like 90 days ahead of time. You can do it in 75 days, but you would better have been in the program before so you know what to do. It costs, when I figure out with the people we have, it costs me over $16 an hour per hour that I pay employees in the H-2A program. We pay all the transportation fees, all the visa fees, all the housing. We transport them they get paid from portal to portal, which means they get paid from when they leave the housing in the morning till when they get back. So it's a rather cumbersome program, but you know the workers are legal because they go through Department of Labor, they go through Department of Homeland Security, they go through the United States Citizen and Immigration Service. They all have something to say about every worker that comes in. They have interviews at the consulates so that if they've been if they're not a good person or they've had problems in Mexico or they've been found to be in the United States before, there's a ban of 10 years. If you've been in the United States and they find that out, you can't come back for 10 years. So that's all part of the H-2A program. It takes a while, though. You better have 90 days.
So initially, the first time you start, the first time you use
Yeah,
it,
and then
give
it's,
yourself lots of
and then
time.
they say it's 75 days, but there's so many people using the program that you better give yourself 90 days, because getting the appointments at the consulates right now, they are booked 2 months in advance. We're trying, for our first initial group of people, we would like 44 workers, and right now I think they've booked for like 20 or 22. So we know that the first group is only going to be 20 or 22, and it might be a couple weeks for the rest come in. And then we'll get another 100 in June.
There's a question back here.
Yeah, I'm wondering what that cost difference is. If you're saying it's $16 an hour for H-2A visa worker versus what's the uptick in cost to you to go through the visa program?
Well, if you look at the state minimum wage, which no grower pays, everybody's paying $10.50, $11 an hour for farm work. With the H-2A program, the federal government says in Michigan I have to pay $13.06 an hour. You have visa fees and transportation fees of about $1,600. You have an agent that helps, $1,600 a person. Okay, you have an agent that helps you write everything up and helps you get through the system, because there's no way as a grower that I have time to do all that and have lawyers on staff to make sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. So, and that, that's $4,000 to $5,000 a contract, and I've got 2 contracts, so I'm spending that. And when it's all said and done, it's about, in the way it is $16 or a little more for me, is because I use people from the 20th of April till about the 15th or 20th of October. So I've got them there for quite a while. If you're a grower that just has them for apples, you have all that cost in 4 weeks. So they're paying like $20 an hour, $22 an hour, because they have to put all them costs into less hours.
And so you're saying that it's an uptick to about $16 per hour from what you would pay $10.50 to somebody
Yeah.
who's not on the visa program?
Yeah, but
Okay.
anybody on our farm, we still have a lot of domestic migrant workers. So they all get paid the visa, the $13.06 an hour, because it's corresponding employment. You don't want to discriminate against your U.S. worker, your domestic worker. So we just made a policy when we went into the program, whatever the H-2A wage is, everybody gets paid that, no matter what they're doing on the farm.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And then supervisors and other people are paid more, but, corresponding work, if you're harvesting, packing, hoeing, whatever, it's everybody gets paid that. If I had a domestic worker, and I think this is probably to your question, you figure out your unemployment, your work comp, your Social Security and all that, it's about $14.50 an hour versus the 16 for the H-2A.
Right.
Okay?
Chris, I saw your hand.
What is the proportion of foreign migrant workers to domestic?
The question is, what's the proportion of foreign workers to domestic?
On our farm, we'll have 150 to 160 H-2A, the visa workers, and we'll have between 40 and 50 migrant workers from other states, and then we've got 25 to 30 local people that work for us also. So it's,
The question is, how big is the farm? And then
some
after
days
that
it's way
question, we're
too
going to
big.
the person over
We
here.
farm 700 acres intensively with vegetables. We own a lot more acres and we farm more, but intensive vegetable acres is about 700.
He owns half of sodas.
Now, the person over here has a question? Yes. Thank you. The question was the importance of everybody's knowing that citizenship is required in order to serve on a jury. Would somebody like to address that, Sheriff Bailey?
I don't think there's any more to say about it. What I was trying to say that, people coming to our country there's a process that we have to go through, and that process should be followed, in my opinion. And if you come here illegally, you're constantly going to be looking over your shoulder, which is a terrible, horrible thing to do. Just like if any of us went to another country and we wanted to stay there and we didn't do it legally, we would be arrested in those countries for not being a citizen and staying there without a work visa or without some type of visa. You cannot go over to another country without a work visa, and once you get done working, you cannot stay there. So I want people to come to this country. There's nothing to do about race. You have to do it, it should be done legally. You should be vetted, you should go through a process, and you're welcome to come to America. That's what America's all about for everybody. Doesn't matter what color your skin is. I welcome everybody to this country as long as they do it in the proper way. Just like if I want to go to Mexico and become a citizen there, I have to do it the proper way. They're not going to just let me stay in Mexico if I'm not a citizen of Mexico. So to say that anybody's racist, I'm not racist. I serve everybody no matter what color their skin is. It's just that there's laws in America and they need to be followed, and people need to come here. We let people in every year, and I think that that's important. We're talking about driver's license. We're talking about having workers for our farms. Most Americans don't want to do that work anymore. You know, it's true. You know, the majority of the people that are picking the apples and picking the tomatoes are Mexicans. They come up here and they're wonderful people and they're hard workers. They've lived on my parents' farm. They live on my in-laws' farm, and they do a great job. How do we fix the problem to get them up here illegally on some type, as Fred said, I call him Freddie because we went to high school together. How do we get them here legally to come up here? Of course, they have to leave after the season's over. Just like if I got a work visa to go to Spain to teach, after my job was done, I have to come back to America. I can't stay in Spain.
Thank you. I just want to put our focus back once more so that we are focusing on the issue that brought us here today, which is the issue of driver's licenses and IDs. Ms. Hendricks, could you comment more fully on that?
Yes, for example, I have the most experience with Spanish, and I know that I've had clients not pass the test before because they were handed the wrong Spanish. They were handed the Spain Spanish, not the South American Spanish. But yeah, there's a number of different ways and multiple languages that you can use to test.
Yes.
On the issue of driver's licenses and insurance, it was always my understanding that it was the car that was insured, not the driver. So to get a driver's license now, is it required to have insurance?
No. You can get a driver's license without insurance because you can drive any.
Insurance issue is really not.
You can drive anybody's car if you got a license. You don't have to drive your own car. The insurance is separate. If you buy a car, then you have to get insurance on it. But somebody else could buy you a car and you could drive on their insurance as long as their insurance agent says that they're covered. You can put as many people you want on to drive your car. You just may have to pay a little bit more to make sure other people are covered, but you need to check with your agent about that.
Mr. Leitz?
And as an employer, my thing with insurance is, for myself, I have, insurance on all my vehicles, and I want to make sure my people have driver's licenses. If somebody would have an accident, that wouldn't be good for me. I mean, it's just a pure business thing, and I'd like to see the people have licenses so they could drive my vehicle, some of them, like they used to be able to do.
And as an attorney, I have seen the complicated legal entanglements that happen when you have a family, and one person can afford to buy and title the car, but is not able to get insurance. And so you might have a situation where someone owns the car by title, but the real owner that paid for it is somebody else, and then the insurance is under someone else's name. And if there is an accident, it is very difficult to unravel that, and difficult for insurance agents to understand, why did the family do it this way? So there's a lot of civil legal issues that would be assisted and alleviated if we were able to implement this driver's license bill.
And I would include all that in agriculture. There's 3 definitions of agriculture. There's a Fair Labor Standard Act definition, there's a Migrant Seasonal Worker Protection Act definition. I think there's the NICS, how do they say it? NICS, that the definition there, and there's several definitions under that. So take your pick some days. I would include everything you said in agriculture. I'd have no problem with that.
Are there other questions? Yes.
This is a question for the attorney. I just wondered if there's a way to frame the argument so that it's a very complex issue, and I think we need to get to the point where people agree to disagree. And you made the statement that if we don't pass this, that potentially we're being called racist and people are going to other states. I think we really need to take that racist issue out of the argument so that we can find some common ground. Because I think if we start pointing, that's one of the worst things you can call somebody a racist. And if we continue to do that, I don't think we're going to make any headway. And this issue does have to be resolved. It has merits on both sides and ultimately affects us all. So if you feel there's a way that we can do that and not use words like we're tearing families apart, and yes, that is a consequence, but I don't think that's anybody's intention whatsoever.
That's a good point. If you look at the language of the bill, it's specifically meant to just be a solution without emotion behind it to what is the practical problem here in Michigan. And one of the most important pieces of the bill is in subsection 2, which says the department shall, in consultation with appropriate interested parties, including but not limited to law enforcement and immigrants' rights representatives. So the bill anticipates people coming together without name calling and coming up with a solution, and outlines exactly how to do that in a non-discriminatory way so that we don't have to put emotion into it at all, even though we know that that comes from part of this because of the way that immigrants are perceived right now and being treated.
And I'd like to ask a quick question of Teresa. Is that bill specifically for farm workers and migrants, or is that for anybody that's here illegally in the state? So we're taking that race part out of it, and Hispanic part, it could be people from the.
It's both immigrants and non-immigrants. That's
Okay.
a good point, Fred, because there are U.S. citizens that were born in rural areas that don't have a birth certificate, that are very elderly, or they can't get a hold of one. And there are children that were born abroad to U.S. parents who may have difficulty accessing their birth record. So it covers immigrants and non-immigrants.
Okay, thank you. This has been a really intriguing hour. I want to give each of our speakers a chance to make a concluding statement, and any admonitions, any additional thoughts, or any emphasis that you'd like to bring to us in conclusion.
I'll thank you. I appreciate being here and talking about issues to make this great country better. But we also need to talk to our senators and our representatives in Washington. There has to be a way that we can work with Mexico to have a great work program to vet people and get them into our country with no problems, to make money, to raise their families, to also apply, if they love it here, to apply for citizenship, to become a citizen of this great country, or, like I said earlier, just to be able to so people don't have to sneak here to come and work at Fred's farm. We should be able to have a program between our two countries that they can come here legally, and then after they're done working, of course, they have to go back to Mexico, but they're going to make money. They're going to take money back to Mexico to make their life better there. But there also has got to be an avenue that if they choose to want to live in this great country, that how do they fill out the application? How do they go through the system to become a citizen of this great country? So I think if we continue to work on that, we continue to work with our farmers, because that's been the big thing. I've been listening to the farmers. I've been the sheriff for 18 years. That's their big concern. How do we get people from Mexico up here to pick our fruit? Because Americans don't want to do it anymore. Okay? How do we do that without pitting us against one another? So we need to talk to your senator, your legislator, your congressman and say, hey, you really need to fix this problem. It's not shouldn't be an immigration problem, okay? But like I said, if people sneak here and try to get work, that's where we're having all these problems across our country, and we need to do a better job about how we're going to address this so we don't continue to have these problems.
Ms. Hendricks?
So I think all of your opinions really matter and your concerns, and I would encourage you to contact the members of the committee and request a hearing so that they can hear from you. And actually, I encourage you to attend the hearing and let them know how you feel about it. There are a number of opinions and concerns, and I would almost guarantee you that if you bring them up to the bill sponsors or any members of the committee, they have tried to address that within the language of the bill because of people bringing up those concerns. And so all of this language has been carefully crafted, and I encourage you to look at it. It's House Bill 4794 and 4795, and see if there's something that isn't addressed in there, because you actually could help make a better bill for both sides of this argument. So on the table over there is the contact information for the senator or the representatives, and then I also have just bullet points from my agency about how the bill would be beneficial to the economy of Michigan, to public safety, and to the social justice issues. So I'll leave this with the table as well.
Paul hit the point. You know, we need to get it done federally, and a big wedge thing right now is amnesty. Well, if the people are working here and they're contributing, they're paying taxes and they're not getting credited for it, but we're getting their taxes. There's not an employer I know that does not pay Social Security, federal and state, because we are all audited by the Department of Labor, and if they come in and you're not paying taxes on people, and the Department of Labor isn't going to look to see if they're legal or not, they're just going to make sure they're getting the fair wages for what they're doing and the taxes are being paid. So they've all, you know, all these people that have been here illegally are paying taxes, just so you know. Even the H-2A workers pay federal and state taxes. They don't pay Social Security because they won't get any Social Security, but they do pay federal and state taxes. You know, we need to solve this nationally, guys. It's went on way too long. I've spent 25 years going back and forth to DC 5 or 6 times a year, and you know, everybody knows who I am when I go to DC. I walk the halls of Congress. I've met the speakers, the 3 speakers of the House. I've met, you know, President Bush. I was invited in there. I've been in the White House several times for different meetings. They all know the issue. It's just, like I said before, it's a wedge issue. The other thing Ms. Hendricks said about getting a hold of the Transportation Committee and stuff, you know, that kind of stuff's fun. If you've never testified before a committee, man, put your thoughts down. Don't BS them, but put your thoughts down on paper and get your name on the list and sit there and read to them. You get a couple of questions asked, it's kind of fun. Have a little back and forth. It isn't like you see on TV. It's a little more laid back than that for some issues.